Hey guys, what's up? This is Tyler from Animator Kid. A few months ago I did a video where I discussed Star Trek's future history from the mid-21st century through the early 2110s. Well, today I'm going to discuss the specific events unique to Star Trek's 22nd century, the era of Enterprise, as well as some of the intervening years leading up to the early 2200s. One thing that is immediately noticeable during the first few decades of the 22nd century is that Earth is now an interstellar power. Humans have established colonies on planets orbiting Alpha Centauri, Vega, Sirius, Eta Cassiopeia, and Kappa Fornacis, in addition to existing colonies on Luna and Mars. Speaking of Mars, the early 22nd century also marks the beginning of a massive terraforming project on Mars, a project that many believe could seriously happen in our own future. Of course, control of the resources used to perform this task is at this point in the hands of the independent Martian colonies, which declared separation from Earth in 2103. By the 2110s, it's believed that femtoengineering will be practical, that is, the manipulation of matter on the scale of quadrillionths of a meter, or about 10 to the minus 15. 6 orders of magnitude smaller than nanotechnology. The natural benefits of this advancement are that now macro-scale teleportation is possible, as well as significant breakthroughs in anti-gravity and force field generation. Of course, as we see in Enterprise, the technology is still largely experimental by the mid-22nd century, meaning it will take longer for these fields to mature. On the other hand, this does allow certain areas of materials technology to progress, including the employment of transparent metals, such as transparent aluminum, and ultra-dense, extremely lightweight structures, such as carbon nanotubes and graphene. By the year 2113, as mentioned in several canon sources, war, poverty, disease, and hunger are virtually eliminated from Earth. This is likely due to a more equitable distribution of resources by the newly emergent world governments. Indeed, this period marks a massive transition away from the traditional free market-based economies of today into the quasi-socialist, resource-based utopia described at various points in the franchise. If you want a more in-depth look at the economy of the Federation specifically, I've got a few videos on the topic in my Star Trek playlist. But suffice to say, this New World economy does not emerge until after the formation of the Federation, as earlier in the century Earth still isn't under a fully united government. In the meantime, it seems that Earth's economy may still have some market aspects, though the minimum standard of living is apparently high enough for all 8.5 billion citizens that the desire for the acquisition of wealth seems to have waned. This would be in line with statements made by Picard in Star Trek First Contact and Jake Sisko in Deep Space Nine. Additionally, this year marks the beginning of the political unit that would eventually become the United Earth, likely a geopolitical and economic union of a number of states, with the final holdouts eventually joining by 2150. This unit's military core would become known as Starfleet, which merges at some point with the civilian United Earth Space Probe Agency that dates back to at least the 2060s as a successor to the International Space Agency. In 2123, the SS Mariposa, a DY-500 class starship, is launched from Earth on a mission of colonization to the Ficus sector. Later, in the 24th century, the Mariposa colony will be neighbored by Bringloid 5, as depicted in the Next Generation episode Up the Long Ladder. Unfortunately, it would take another 2 decades before humans broke the Warp 2 barrier, about 8 times the speed of light under the original scale, as the Vulcans refused to provide humanity with more advanced warp technology. The Warp 3 barrier, or 27 times the speed of light, would be broken the next year using the NX Delta prototype, captained by A.G. Robinson and Henry Archer. Warp 4, or 64 times the speed of light, would be achieved sometime in the intervening years until Earth's first Warp 5 starship, the Enterprise NX-01, is commissioned under the command of Jonathan Archer. What follows, of course, are the events of Star Trek Enterprise, including humanity's first contact with Klingons, the Suliban, and dozens of other races. The Xindi Crisis also lasts from 2153 to 2154, when the alien race, being influenced by beings from another dimension, attack Earth based on the prophecy that humanity would lead to their destruction. The Xindi Crisis eventually ends when the crew of the Enterprise is able to stop the deployment of a superweapon capable of destroying entire planets. Another major event during this period is the Babel Crisis, which results in the formation of the Coalition of Planets and is a precursor to the Earth-Romulan War. Among the founding members of the Coalition are Earth, Vulcan, Tellar, and Andoria, 4 of the founding members of the Federation 6 years later. The formation of this military pact is hindered by Terra Prime, a terrorist organization rooted in the eugenics movement that takes a very xenophobic approach towards Earth's interaction with alien species. Luckily, the planned attack by Terra Prime is thwarted by the crew of the Enterprise, because TV logic, and the Coalition forms in time to push back against the Romulan threat. This war lasts until 2160 and costs hundreds of millions of lives. Finally, a treaty is negotiated via subspace radio that leads to the establishment of the Romulan Neutral Zone. Among the veterans of this war is Balthazar Edison, future captain of the USS Franklin, which goes missing in 2164 while on a mission inside the Gagarin radiation belt near Theta Sculptoris. Later on, Jonathan Archer is elected president of the United Federation of Planets, serving 2 four-year terms. It's during the intervening period between the founding of the Federation and the Star Trek universe's early 23rd century that Earth continues its forays into deep space. These include the launch of the USS Archon and its subsequent loss on Beta 3, hundreds of light years away, near future Klingon space. Speaking of the Klingons, the late 22nd century marks the beginning of a number of skirmishes that last, it seems, until the signing of the Khitomer Accords in 2293. These include the battle over control of Sherman's planet, as well as a number of other systems that change hands during the next several decades. Also, certain powers such as the Breen, the Cardassians, and the Zenkethi seem to be confined to their home systems, apparently only spreading out during the 23rd and 24th centuries. This is based on the fact that while the Enterprise NX-01 explored the area of space containing these powers, as evidenced by near first contact with the Ferengi and Cardassians, the Federation doesn't seem to have much interaction with them until the 24th century. Nevertheless, these are all the major events that occurred during the 22nd century. Pretty soon I'll have a video out detailing the events that occurred during the 23rd century. Until then, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and share this video if you enjoyed it. If you want to support me on Patreon, click the element on the end screen. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to be awesome. Live long and prosper.